There comes a point in life when you start noticing things that previously went completely unnoticed, and there's no way to pretend you didn't see them anymore. It's not something someone taught you. It didn't come from a book, a video, or a conversation. It simply happened. Suddenly, certain attitudes of people began to seem empty. Conversations that used to be normal now sound shallow. Situations that everyone else accepts start to cause you an unease that's hard to explain. And you try to ignore it. Try to go back to how things were before. Try to fit in again. Try to think less. But it doesn't work. Because it's no longer about what you do, it's about what you've come to see. And that's not even the most unsettling part. It's realizing that while you're questioning everything internally, most people around you seem completely comfortable not noticing anything. And that creates a silent, almost suffocating feeling. It's as if you were living in the same reality as everyone else, but experiencing something completely different on the inside. Then that thought comes up that you avoid facing directly. There's something wrong with me. Or am I seeing something that others can't see yet? And it is precisely here that everything begins to change. Because this question is not confusion. This is the first sign that your consciousness is coming out of autopilot. The discomfort of seeing beyond. Initially, this awakening doesn't come as clarity. It comes as discomfort. A constant discomfort. Subtle, but impossible to ignore. You start noticing inconsistencies in people. It's not about what they say, but about what they do. You start noticing repetitive patterns. In relationships, in choices, in behaviors. And the strangest thing is that nobody seems to notice it with the same intensity as you. It's like you're watching something that everyone is participating in, but without realizing what is really going on behind the scenes. And this leads to profound mental fatigue. Because you can no longer simply go with the flow and follow it. There is an active consciousness within you all the time, observing, analyzing, feeling, and that's where the emotional weight comes in. The feeling of not belonging. You are present, but you are not connected. He is surrounded by people, but internally, he feels a distance that is difficult to explain, and this creates a silent conflict. Part of you wants to turn off that perception. She wants to go back to living more lightly, without questioning so much, without feeling so much. But the other side has already crossed a point of no return. She no longer accepts living on autopilot. She can no longer ignore what she perceives. And that's exactly why you feel torn. Between the comfort of unconsciousness and the discomfort of seeing beyond. If this is happening to you, you need to understand something fundamental. This discomfort is not a mistake. He is a sign that your perception is expanding, even if at first it seems more like a burden than a gift. And in the next point, you'll understand why this doesn't mean you're lost. The mistake of thinking. You're lost at some point in this process. You start to doubt yourself, not in an obvious way, but in a quiet, almost imperceptible way. You find yourself thinking, am I overcomplicating things? Is this all in my head? Should I just live like everyone else? And this is one of the most delicate points in this entire journey, because it seems logical to question it. It seems sensible to try to return to normal, sir. It even seems safer. But there's a hidden flaw there. You're trying to use the logic of an ancient mind to explain a consciousness that has already changed. And this will never end. It's like trying to fit a new piece into an old puzzle. No matter how hard you try, it won't fit. And then you interpret that in the worst possible way, as if you were the problem. But that's not the case. What's happening is much deeper than that. You are not lost. You are in transition. And transitions are uncomfortable because they take you away from any safe reference point. The old ways no longer make sense. The new situation is not entirely clear yet, and you're stuck in the middle. No ground to stand on. No certainties. Without external validation, but there's a truth that almost no one tells you. The middle of the journey always seems confusing for those who are evolving. and completely invisible to those who haven't yet left their place. You're not late. You are not broken. You are not tripping. You are traversing a level of consciousness that requires you to release old versions of yourself. And that hurts. Because it's not just about understanding more, it's about ceasing to be who you were, without yet fully knowing who you are becoming. Now tell me something. Honestly, how many times have you tried to fit in again, even knowing deep down that there was no more room for it? That answer already says a lot about where you really are. And in the next point, Maro, you will understand what is really happening inside you, beyond the confusion. What is really happening with your consciousness. What you are experiencing is not just an emotional moment. It's an internal adjustment, silent, deep, and often invisible to those looking from the outside. Your mind is beginning to recognize patterns that were previously automatic. Your emotions are becoming more sensitive to what is true and what is not. And your consciousness is ceasing to operate in repetition mode. This changes everything. Because until then, you were living much more by reacting than by perceiving. Not now. Now there is a space between what happens and how you feel about it. And it is in this space that everything begins to transform. A simple way to understand this is to imagine a radio station. For a long time, you were tuned to a specific frequency. The same ideas, the same patterns, the same interpretations of reality, and that seemed normal because it was the only channel you knew. But now, something has changed. It's as if someone had slowly turned the frequency knob, and gradually you began to pick up another signal that's clearer, deeper, more realistic. But there's an important detail. As you begin to hear this new frequency, many people around you are still completely stuck in the old ways. And that's why you feel this disconnect. It's not rejection. It's not about superiority. It's a difference in perception. And that requires maturity. Because it's very easy to fall into two extremes here. Or you try to revert to the old frequency and disconnect from yourself. Either you reject everything and everyone and isolate yourself rigidly. Neither path is balanced. The real movement is about sustaining this new awareness without losing your presence in the world. And that takes time, because it's not just about seeing more, it's about learning to live with this new way of perceiving things without getting lost in the process. Now let me tease you with something important. If you've already started to notice all of this, why do you still insist on doubting what you yourself are feeling? Perhaps your greatest difficulty isn't understanding reality. Perhaps it's about trusting your own conscience. And that's exactly what most people can't afford to sustain. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, now's the time. Because what comes next will help you not to back down in this process. And the next point will touch on exactly where many people get stuck, without realizing it. Why not everyone can see? There's a part of you that still hopes others will understand. That at some point someone will look at you and say, I understand that too. You are not alone. That makes sense. But most of the time, that doesn't happen. And it's not because people are indifferent. It's not because they don't care. It's because they can't see yet. Consciousness is not something you hand over to someone like information. It's not a concept you explain, and that's it. The other person understands. It's a level of perception that can only be accessed when a person is ready to see, and that breaks a silent expectation within you, because you start to realize that there's no point in explaining too much. There's no point in trying to convince them. There's no point in insisting. It's like trying to show a color to someone who hasn't yet developed the ability to see it. Can you describe it? You can compare. You can insist. But experience cannot be transferred. And that's where a new internal conflict arises. A part of you wants to share what you're noticing. I want to help. He wants to open people's eyes. But another group is beginning to understand that everyone has their own timing. And accepting that isn't easy. because it requires you to let go of control, let go of the need to be understood, let go of the expectation of validation. And in doing so, something changes. You stop trying to be accepted, and it begins to sustain itself. You stop seeking confirmation outside yourself, and you begin to trust what you perceive inside, and that's a milestone. Because from this point on, your consciousness no longer depends on the gaze of others to exist. But there is a silent risk at this point, a risk that many people don't realize, and that can make you back down without even noticing. And that's exactly what we need to talk about now. The danger of doubting yourself. Doubt doesn't arrive with a bang. It doesn't appear to be a major crisis. She infiltrates in a subtle way, almost imperceptible. You begin to soften what you feel. He begins to ignore clear perceptions. You start to adapt again, just so you don't feel different. And when you realize it, you're already drifting away from yourself. The problem is that this doubt doesn't arise from nowhere. It is nourished by the environment, based on the opinions of others, out of fear of judgment, because of the need for belonging, and above all, because of the discomfort of upholding a truth that not everyone accepts. Then, without realizing it, you start making small concessions. You stop saying what you think. Stop trusting your feelings. Stop following what deep down you know is real. It's as if you were dimming your own light, just to fit into spaces that have become too small for who you are becoming. And that comes at a cost. An emotional cost, an energy cost, an internal cost. Because every time you ignore your conscience, you reinforce the old pattern. That same pattern that you've already realized no longer makes sense. And here is the most important point. Doubting yourself doesn't protect you. It just disconnects you. It may even seem easier in the short term. It may even bring a momentary feeling of belonging. But deep down, you know when you're betraying yourself. You know when it's shrinking. You know when you're returning to a place that no longer represents you. So let me ask you with complete clarity. How many times have you ignored what you were feeling, just so you don't have to live up to who you're really becoming? This answer might be uncomfortable, but it is also liberating, because from the moment you see that, you get the chance to choose differently. And in the next point, you'll understand how to sustain this new understanding without losing yourself in the process. Understanding more is just the beginning. The real challenge is to sustain it, because seeing changes everything. But maintaining that clarity in the real world requires a level of awareness that almost no one teaches you to develop. At first, you can even access this perception easily in moments of silence, in deeper reflections, when you are alone. But when he returns to his usual surroundings, something happens. Distractions are increasing. External influences are at play again. Old patterns start pulling you back, almost automatically. And if you're not careful, you'll slip. Not because you want to, but that's because he's still learning how to sustain this new level. Maintaining awareness is like balancing on a tightrope. In the beginning, any wind throws things off balance. Any noise is distracting. Any doubt will make you lose your focus. And that's exactly why so many people back down. Not because it couldn't access it, but because he couldn't keep it up. And here's a point that changes everything. Consciousness cannot sustain itself on its own. She needs to be fed, just as the body needs energy to continue. Your perception needs presence to remain active. And what fuels this presence? Observation, inner silence, honesty with yourself. When you start to truly observe yourself, without judgment, without escaping, something starts to organize itself within you. You start to realize when you're going on autopilot. You realize when you are reacting instead of choosing. You realize when you are drifting away from what you once understood. And that realization pulls you back, not in an aggressive way, but in a conscious way. It's as if, little by little, you are building an internal axis, a point of stability that no longer depends so much on what is happening outside. But this doesn't happen overnight. There are moments of clarity and moments of decline, moments when you feel aligned, and moments when it seems like everything has gone back to square one. And here's a truth that can ease a lot of things inside you. Fluctuations are part of the process. You didn't lose progress because you had a bad day. You didn't regress because you felt confused. You didn't go back to zero because, for a few moments, you disconnected. The process is not a straight line. It's a constant adjustment, and the more you accept this, it becomes easier to return to the center without guilt. Now, there's something even deeper here. Maintaining this new understanding isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming aware, including of your own flaws. It's about recognizing when you're wrong, without destroying yourself because of it. It's about recognizing when you've lost without giving up on yourself. And most importantly, it's about stopping demanding a stability from yourself that you're still building. Because ultimately, what you're doing is relearning how to exist in a more present way, more true, more aligned with what you can no longer ignore. And that takes time. It requires patience. It requires emotional consistency. But above all, it requires a silent decision. The decision not to abandon one's own conscience, even when it is uncomfortable to maintain it. Now think about it calmly. Are you willing to stand by what you already perceive? Or are you still waiting for this to become easy before taking it seriously? This answer defines the depth of your transformation. And the next point will show you why this path is often accompanied by something that scares many people, but which plays an essential role in your growth. The role of isolation in the process. There's a phase in this journey that almost no one talks about clearly, because she's not pretty, it's not light, and it is often misinterpreted. It's the distancing phase, not necessarily physical, but internal. You start to distance yourself from conversations that were once common, from environments that once seemed normal, of connections that suddenly no longer make sense, and that's scary, because it seems like a loss. It seems like you're becoming lonely. It seems like something is going wrong. But most of the time, it isn't. What's happening is a compatibility adjustment. His awareness changed. His perception expanded. And naturally, anything that doesn't keep pace with this movement begins to become misaligned. Not out of rejection, but by frequency. It's like trying to keep two completely different songs playing at the same time. After a while, the noise becomes unbearable. And then comes the silence. A silence that many people interpret as loneliness, but which in reality is space. A space for you to listen to yourself without interference. Space to reorganize your thoughts. Space to understand who you are becoming, without the pressure of fitting in. But this space can be uncomfortable, because it removes distractions, remove external validations, take away your emotional crutches, and it puts you face to face with yourself. No filter, no escape, no script. And that's where many people try to go back to old connections, going back to old patterns, going back to places that no longer make sense, just to avoid feeling this emptiness. But this emptiness is not a mistake. It's an internal cleansing process. It's the gap between who you were and who you are becoming, and trying to fill that space in a rushed manner. It only delays what needs to be integrated. There is a profound maturity in learning to stay in this place without despair. Understanding that not all separation is a loss, not all silence is abandonment, not all loneliness is absence. Sometimes it's preparation, preparing for more aligned connections, for more informed decisions, towards a way of life that no longer depends on fitting in, but on authenticity. And let me ask you something that perhaps you haven't faced directly yet. You're trying to fill this silence. Or are you allowing it to transform you? Because the way you respond to that completely changes the course of your process. And in the next point, you'll realize that, even when it seems like you're alone, there's something happening that you haven't been able to fully see yet. You are not alone, even if it seems so. There is a moment when the silence seems absolute. It's as if no one around you truly understands what you're going through, as if their perceptions were isolated, almost disconnected from the rest of the world. But that's not entirely true. What's happening is more subtle. People who are on the same level of perception as you aren't always physically close. They are not always part of your current cycle. They don't always appear when you expect them to, but they do exist. And in a way, you've already begun to align yourself with them, even without realizing it, because consciousness also functions as frequency, and similar frequencies maafapeminsi eventually meet, not through effort, but for compatibility reasons. The problem is that, until that encounter happens, the mind tries to interpret the process as definitive loneliness, and it isn't. It's just a transitional phase between old connections, and connections that are more aligned with who you're becoming. So don't rush into things. Don't conclude too quickly that you're alone in the world, just because he hasn't yet found someone who vibrates in the same direction. Sometimes, the process isn't distancing you from people. It's repositioning you. What does this new vision allow us to create? When you stop resisting what you're noticing, something begins to open up. A new way of living. More aware, more intentional, less automatic. You start making decisions with more clarity. It begins to recognize patterns before repeating them. And gradually, it stops reacting and starts choosing. And that completely changes the course of your life. Because you get out of autopilot and enters a state of creation, creating choices, creating paths, creating a reality that makes more sense to you. But there is an important detail. This new vision is not meant to make everything easier. She's coming to hold you accountable. Because from the moment you see, you can no longer pretend you don't know. And that requires taking a stand. It takes courage to change what needs to be changed. It takes strength to avoid repeating what you've already realized is limiting you. It requires awareness to avoid reverting to autopilot simply for comfort. But at the same time, there's something liberating about it. You start to feel like you have direction, that your choices carry more weight, that your life ceases to be a repetition and becomes a construction. And now I ask you, if you can already see new paths, why are you still hesitating to follow them? Because in the next point, you'll understand how to live with this awareness, without disconnecting from the world around you. Integration. Living between two worlds. There comes a point when you understand that you don't have to choose between two extremes, not even going back to being who you were, nor to completely withdraw from the world. True balance lies in integration. You continue living your routine. They continue to have a relationship. It continues to exist in the same world as before. But inside, something changed. You don't react the same way. He doesn't get involved with the same intensity in everything. You no longer get so easily lost in what used to consume you. It's like you're on two levels at the same time, participating, but observing, feeling it, but understanding, living, but consciously, and that doesn't take you away from reality. In fact, it brings you closer to her in a more lucid way, because you start to act with more presence, with more intention, with more clarity about what is worth your energy and what is not. That is the maturity of consciousness. It's not about becoming distant. It's about becoming a whole person, capable of existing in the world without being swallowed by it. And that changes how you position yourself. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. No need to convince anyone. You don't need to explain yourself all the time. You simply live with inner consistency. And gradually, this starts to have repercussions outside the home, in your choices, in their relationships, in the way you conduct your own life. Now think about it honestly. You're trying to escape the world, or are you learning to live in it consciously? Because that answer defines the level of balance you are building. At first, it seemed confusing. It seemed like a distancing. It seemed like an excess of thoughts. It almost seemed like a mistake. But now it's clearer. You're not acting strangely. You are not lost. You're not overthinking. You're noticing more. And understanding more changes everything. It changes how you see people. It changes how you interpret situations. It changes how you position yourself in relation to your own life. And most importantly, it changes the way you see yourself. Because there comes a point where you can no longer go back to being who you didn't see before. And that's not a problem. It's a calling. A call to live more consciously, with more truth, with a stronger presence, even though it is sometimes uncomfortable. Now the question that remains is simple. but profound? You'll continue to doubt what you already understand, or will you begin to trust the consciousness that is awakening within you? If this content resonated with you, comment below what resonated with you the most. And if you want to continue delving deeper into this process, stay here, because the more aware you become, the less you accept living on autopilot, the less you'll want to live.